Some of the causes that I've taken up in men's health is really a direct reflection of my history. You know, I lost my father at an early age. He died of a heart attack. If I can help someone else's father, right, from that same outcome, that's what I want to do.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Welcome to Health is Wealth, where we explore the intersection of athletic excellence and personal well-being. I'm your host, Dr. Myron Rolle. We're joined today by a true titan of the gridiron, a Pro Football Hall of Famer known as the Bus, Jerome Bettis.
That's his third touchdown of the game. 70, 1 yard.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, the Super Bowl champions.
From his dominant NFL career with the Rams and Steelers to his tireless advocacy off the field, Jerome's journey embodies the spirit of resilience and dedication. We're excited to delve into his perspective on balancing athletic demands with personal well-being and how his experiences have shaped his views on health. Before we welcome him to the show, here's a little bit more about Jerome Bettis.
But first, a message from our sponsor.
In 34 years, I'm going to have a heart attack. Right here, in this park. But I'll survive. I'll take charge and demand more tests. And I'll find out I've had high Lp(a)
since I was young. It's an inherited condition that can raise the risk of early heart attack or stroke.
And now that I know about it, I can take steps to manage my heart health and his.
If you or a family member have had an early heart attack or stroke, ask your doctor for a simple Lp(a) blood test today.
My name is Jerome Bettis, and I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Typical day when I was a kid, grew up with an older brother, older sister, so it really consisted of kind of chasing my brother around. Football was going to be an opportunity for me. I knew I needed a vehicle that would get me out of the neighborhood that I was in. When I was in high school, I didn't watch football because I was a bowler, so I bowled on the weekends. It's funny, I didn't know the NFL was a real possibility until my sophomore year, and there was talk about me petitioning the NFL to leave as a sophomore.
Here's Bettis breaking free and down to the 2-yard.
Having asthma, I understood that it was a challenge for me to do what I was doing, right? I'm a running back, and I'm asthmatic.
Up the middle back.
It was really my mother who really eased my concerns and just let me know that even though I had asthma, I could still accomplish anything I wanted to.
Jerome, thanks for joining us on Health is Wealth. I appreciate you being here, man.
No problem. No, thanks for having me.
Well, I kind of want to start at the origins of your story. Growing up in Detroit, it's a city with a rich history, strong sense of community. How did your upbringing in Detroit shape your athletic background and sort of your life's journey?
Well, it's interesting because my journey was not really from an athletic standpoint. I mean, I really wasn't a big athlete growing up. The sport that I played was bowling, of all things. I was a bowler, so I really wasn't into baseball, little league, basketball, none of that. So it's really interesting how my career kind of happened. It happened from an educational standpoint. Only reason I played football was to try to get a college scholarship. Obviously, my background being from Detroit, tough environment, that all factored in because I knew I needed to find a way or a vehicle that could get me out of the environment that I was in.
That's bowling. That's amazing. I gotta ask, how did that start? Was that a family member that got you involved in that?
My mother, interesting. My mother decided she wanted to create a situation. I have an older brother, so she wanted to get her two sons off the streets of Detroit. In the mid '80s, very tough times in Detroit. So she said, what can I do that will keep them busy on the weekends? And she came up with bowling, and nobody bowled in the family. And so she learned how to bowl, and then she taught us how to bowl, and we became a bowling family as a result of my mom's decision.
Oh, that's amazing. You know, the foresight of your mother to think about you and your brother's future and how this alternative could be, you know, a way to sort of get you away from some of the distractions and the pitfalls and challenges that people who grow up in rougher areas sort of deal with. But that is like the blessing of having a wise, older, loving and caring parents who says, you know what, I'm going to fill in this gap. I'm going to step in the void and do everything I can. Even though my kids may not see the vision now, I see it, and I'm going to help them sort of achieve. That's awesome, man.
Well, thanks. We definitely didn't see it then. I promise you that. We didn't see the vision at that point because we were the only ones in the neighborhood bowling. So we were like, we felt as though we were the weirdos. But as it turned out, it was the best thing she could have ever done.
So then you started playing football, and you had an opportunity to attend Notre Dame. That's an amazing accomplishment in and of itself. When I was getting recruited, it was Ty Willingham was the head coach, and I remember sitting down with him, and my parents were like, did we just come to church? Like, it felt like he was preaching to me a little bit. I had that kind of like pastoral feel that he had, but it was a great opportunity to be recruited by such a legendary program. Tell me about that time there, getting there, you know, the transition from Detroit to South Bend. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, when I got to Notre Dame, Lou Holtz was the head coach. I mean, it was obviously it was a tough transition coming from where I came from, a predominantly black area. My high school, I think we had a little over 3,000, almost 4,000 kids, and maybe, you know, we had one or two kids that weren't black. I think they were Asian. So growing up, we didn't see or interact with, you know, white people from the standpoint of school other than the teachers. So, you know, going into a predominantly white university, it was, you know, a definite change for me, but it was one that I wanted, I relished it. And coming from, you know, inner city program, we didn't have a lot in terms of, you know, the field, the equipment, you know, and then you go to this program that at the time, you know, was, you know, one of the best in the country. So it was a serious culture shock, if you will. Then the school on top of that was extremely difficult. So you had to factor that in. So my freshman year, it was a lot of difficulties, but I found a way because I was committed. I knew that there was no going back. So I had to find a way to get it done. And fortunately, you know, they had tutors and they helped you, you know, really acclimate into your environment. And once I did, I was fine.
Did you see something inside of you, Jerome, that said, you know what, even though I'm moving into a different environment, especially from a demographic standpoint, leaving a situation that felt comfortable with me, with my culture, and people who look like me to something that's different, did you know that there was something inside of you that said, you know what, I can be adept at this particular community. I can not only fit in, but I can stand out here and not feel like a fish out of water, or not feel sort of awkward in those moments of your teenage years where you're trying to find yourself. Did you know you had something in you? Did somebody tell you about that? Like, how did you sort of navigate that sort of growing into your purpose, not even on a football field, just as a man in general?
Yeah, for me, it was pretty simple because I said to myself, this is my opportunity, right? I was looking for a vehicle that was going to give me the opportunity to kind of escape the environment that I was in and the situation that I was dealing with. So I knew this was it, right? So I was literally, you know, scared straight, if you will, in the sense that I knew this was my opportunity. And I just kept telling myself, I'm not going to screw it up. I'm not going to screw it up. Don't screw it up, right? And so everything that we had to do, I was willing to adjust, change. And so I was moving in that way from a daily perspective. But in the back of my mind, I said, I am going to make this work. So it was the positive attitude of knowing that this was the opportunity that I've been looking for that made me want to adapt and adjust.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. And I think a lot of people, especially our audience, can pick up from that. Younger kids who dive into these situations where from the outside, from a 30,000-foot view, looks like they probably shouldn't be there. But, if you get into the nuanced, granular details of it all, how that can just sort of fulfill and truly sort of empower you to find who you are and who you ought to be, not just as a player, but as a person. So I think that's incredible. On the football field in particular, you guys had a lot of talent in Notre Dame, always have a lot of talent, a lot of NFL talent. What did you feel, if you felt at all, the pressure to stay on the field, to perform at a high level? Like, did you feel, sort of the weight of the world on your shoulders to continuously perform at a peak level? Because there were guys coming behind you or even in front of you in years who are exceptional, who are going to play on Sundays one day.
Yeah, so for me, yeah, that was there, but I was fortunate in that at my position, Coach Holtz, he wanted me so badly that he was like, listen, if you come, I'm not recruiting another fullback for another, 2 years. I want, you're my guy. And so he sold me on that. And I don't know if it actually happened because I think the same year they recruited a guy who was a fullback, but he was a linebacker as well. But they made, oh, he's a linebacker, not a problem. But he made me feel, like I was, 800 feet tall and I was the guy and that I could get it done. And as it turns out, when I got there, the starter had went through spring and they found he had a rare kidney disease. And so he had to retire from football. And I came in as a true freshman and the thought was, okay, well, he's going to have to play. So after week one, I think week one was the first week I didn't play. I played from week 2 for the rest of the time I was there. So I really got an early start at Notre Dame because of injury. So it really made the transition a lot faster because they had to get me ready pretty quick. So I never had an idea in my head that, I got to perform, I got to do this, because everything was going so fast. I had to get in where I fit in. But what I did do was I learned everything pretty quickly in terms of the playbook and everything. So when they asked me to come in and contribute, it wasn't a problem, and I was Johnny on the spot, ready to go.
Stellar career you had at Notre Dame for sure. That carried you on to getting drafted into the National Football League to the LA Rams. What was that transition like, coming from the college football experience, now playing in the NFL on the West Coast, big time team, having to carry the load? Talk to me a little bit about those early years for you.
Yeah, for me, the transition from college to the NFL, obviously I felt a lot more comfortable being the 10th pick of the draft. I felt that I was ready. Now going to LA, that's a whole different story in the sense of being on the West Coast. I hadn't really spent a lot of time there. We played USC a couple times, so was vaguely familiar with the West Coast. But the biggest change for me came with the winning. At Notre Dame, we may have lost 4 or 5 games my entire 3 years there, where we went on I think 9-game losing streak my first year with the Rams. So that was the hardest part for me because I was so accustomed to winning. Every game that we played, we felt that we were going to win. And then you get to the NFL, and it wasn't like that. But it was like that in my head. But unfortunately, it wasn't like that with my teammates and the thought process, because these guys are talking about where they're going to eat dinner at in the third quarter and stuff. And I just can't understand how these guys are comfortable with us losing. I'm saying, hey man, y'all need to focus in. We still got 3 minutes in the third quarter, man. We can win this game. And that was the biggest adjustment for me, not being able to really impact my teammates, because trying to be a leader, you want to go out there and rah-rah the guys. But when you get to the NFL, the veteran guys kind of set the culture in that for that team. And those guys obviously were in a situation where they had lost quite a lot. So that was the culture. It was a culture that they were okay with losing. And for me, coming from Notre Dame, it wasn't okay. And so I had a really, really difficult time trying to work through that and trying to still be a teammate, but trying to get the guys to want to do better.
Just as a point of clarification, was one of those losses at Notre Dame to Florida State? I just want to make sure.
No. It was never. I never lost to Florida State. I left as a junior before the game that Notre Dame beat Florida State.
Okay.
All right. But I wasn't there for that game. It would have been my senior year, but I left early. And And Notre Dame did spank Florida State. That the poll makers, they cheated Notre Dame. They still allowed Florida State to play for the national championship when they had lost to Notre Dame. It's just sad.
That happens sometimes, man. And I think that was the Charlie Ward one, right? That was C. Ward, right?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't Notre Dame lose to Boston College that year? Is that true?
They lost the next week.
Yeah.
The very next week, Boston College beat them in a close one. But obviously they didn't come prepared. They weren't ready, and so they didn't deserve to win. So it is what it is.
Well, after a couple seasons with the Rams, you transitioned to Pittsburgh with the Steelers, where you truly became the bus at that point. Talk to me about joining the Steelers and how that environment contributed to such a legendary career that you end up having.
So I get to Pittsburgh, and it was such a refreshing feeling that all those players, they wanted to win, right? And it was the culture again. They wanted to win. Every football game they played, they felt they could win. And it took me back to my college experience at Notre Dame, where we felt we could win every game. And I think that was the thought in the locker room before every game. When we played in Pittsburgh, the thought was, we're going to win. And so I quickly realized I had a group of guys that were like-minded, just like me, and that we wanted to go out there and take care of business. And so my career really took off at that point because everybody wanted to win, and everybody was selfless in the sense that nobody cared who got the accolades and where the success kind of fell in terms of the Pro Bowls and all those kind of things. So we had a great team and really fostered the growth that I had, but also it allowed me to be the leader that I would ultimately become, because that culture was, hey, if you see a guy not taking care of business, you say something. You pull him to the side, because it's all about winning here. And it was just a great environment to grow and develop.
That's awesome. Playing with a couple of Steelers. A couple of those guys are my older brothers, my big brothers, Chris Hope and Brian McFadden. I love those guys. And I don't know if you interfaced with Lawrence Timmons at all. He was my teammate. He might have been towards that. Yeah. So LT was such a great player and great guy. And they often, when they would come back to school and talk to us, the younger guys, they would talk about that culture you're speaking about, how that sort of fueled the room and guys held each other accountable. And that's amazing. I've honestly, Jerome, I've taken that, not as an aside, but I've taken that sort of mindset that I've learned from guys who played like you at those winning and successful organizations to what I try to do in the operating room as a pediatric neurosurgeon, and know that the culture has to be a certain way for us to have successful outcomes for these patients. We have to hold each other accountable. We have to communicate. We have to have a standard, right? Like, we can't cut any corners because we're trying to get done the case fast, or it's nearing lunchtime or something like that. So I appreciate you saying what you said, because I've heard that from other guys, and it matters a lot to a winning environment, not just in football but life too.
I do believe that football teaches life lessons. So it's one of those, if you get it, you learn it, then that's something you're going to carry with you no matter what you do. So that's why, it's so important for the leadership to promote, that type of culture, because these young men not only go from football, then they go on and be successful in other areas of life because of what that teamwork and camaraderie, what it brings to you.
Absolutely. I want to move into health a little bit. The show is health as well, so I want to dive into a little bit of that. You had a very durable career. You play with a lot of intensity. Talk to me about what you did to maintain your body and make sure that you were at peak performance, optimized from a physical standpoint to withstand the hits and also to thrive in the midst of getting hit.
Yeah, so for me it was all about, preparation. And so I stayed in the training room, and a lot of guys thought, this guy's, he always hurt, but it was always about preventative care for me. I was always, icing, doing this, getting massages, getting my shoulders worked out. Just if there was any issue, I was trying to stay on top of it. Franco Harris, when I was a first-year player in Pittsburgh, I had an injury going into the offseason. Franco Harris, had lunch with me after that season and really kind of helped me in the sense that he told me, hey, listen, you got to make sure you go into these off seasons, take care of your body, make sure you get that injury worked on, because, a lot of times season's over, even if you hurt, you split, boom, you're gone, right? And he was like, no, stay in town, get it worked on. You want to be 100% healthy in the off season, so those things don't linger into the next season. And so I was very conscious about making sure I stayed in town and made sure my body was 100% healthy before I would exit the city or go somewhere else, because I lived in LA half the year. So I would make sure I wouldn't leave until I was 100% healthy. And that was a big part of what Franco Harris kind of, gave me a little nugget. And I always kept that and made sure that was something that I lived by.
Awesome. Jerome, I wanna press this a little bit. I've got to ask you a little bit of an edgy question, if you're all right with that.
Sure.
So I know your running style and your physical nature of how you played was serious, and you delivered the blow to opponents, and the hammer, not the nail, as we always say. Knowing what we know now about traumatic brain injury and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, me being in the space of neuroscience and thinking about head trauma, head injury, would you have adjusted your style of play if you knew then what you know now? Would that had any impact? Would it slowed you down a little bit? Would you have played less years? Talk to me about how you would have thought about CTE, especially if it was more prevalent around the time you played.
Well, it wouldn't have impacted or changed the way that I played. But what it would have done is it would have brought the consciousness there. When I ran, I tried to avoid that helmet-to-helmet shot because, obviously that you're going to be, dizzy, knocked out, or, back then you say, oh man, you try to shake it off. But those were things, obviously, grade 1 concussions and things like that. So it wasn't something that I was, looking for in terms of contact. As a big guy, I knew I was always going to get hit a lot. So my philosophy was to avoid as many hits as I humanly could. And that's why I was a little slipperier than most people think. Everybody thought I was just, coming in pounding on people. But I knew if I wanted to have any longevity in this game, I needed to avoid as many hits as I possibly could. So it wouldn't have changed my physical nature, but I would have been much more conscious in terms of, leading with the helmet, where the helmet placement, some of those things that in the blocking. When I blocked, my thought was, helmet to helmet, get my helmet right under their chin. And so it was a lot of, face-to-face kind of contact. That would have been substantially different had I known, right? And so it wouldn't have impacted my physicality, but it would have changed the way that I went out and kind of dispersed the punishment.
I know you won a Super Bowl in your hometown, Detroit. You've now transitioned into media and advocacy. But one thing that I think is really awesome about your post-playing career is your interest in advancing men's health and optimizing men's health generally. You know, we have a lot of viewers who maybe aren't athletes, but are looking for tips, tricks, and ways that they could live a healthy and fruitful life, just getting screened or getting tested or going to a doctor or things like that. Why did you dive into sort of generalized men's health, and why is that important to you?
Well, it's important to me because of my family and my friends. And so some of the causes that I've kind of taken up in men's health is really a direct reflection of my history. So, you know, I lost my father at an early age. He died of a heart attack, and it's one of those, you know, things that you say to yourself, if I can help someone else's father, right, from that same outcome, that's what I want to do. So all these things are in some way related to me in my life, and that's why I've been so out front and wanting to help, because I do believe that ultimately it's about education, right? If you can educate the public on these issues, then they can at that point make those decisions and say, you know what, my father, I lost him from a diabetic heart attack. Okay, well now let's attack diabetes. Let's attack heart health. Let's attack some of the issues that some people are not effectively dealing with, and some of it is about the education side. So I try to do as much as I can to just explain and educate and draw awareness, bring awareness to some of these issues, so that they won't ultimately, you know, lose a father at an early age, or lose a brother or a son at an early age. And so that's why it's so important to me, because it's been, you know, things that have happened in my life that's brought me to all of these issues.
And then on a personal standpoint, not to get too deep into like your daily routine, but you know, your diet, your sleep hygiene, the things that you consume, the things that you're around, you know, what do you do every day to try to make sure that you're the best Jerome Bettis you can be every single day for yourself, for your community, for your family as well?
Yeah, my biggest challenge now is travel. I still travel quite a bit, so it's always a little difficulty in terms of the diet, the rest. But I'm always conscious of trying to get the correct amount of sleep. That's one of the hardest parts of my daily routine. So I'm always trying to plan out when I can get to sleep, what I need to do from a time perspective, because the one thing that you never get enough of is time. So just trying to manage the sleep, that's the first part. And then the second part, being a big guy, family, all we're big people, is the consuming of the food, trying to do that in such a way that it allows me some flexibility in terms of time. So I'm trying to really be big on when I eat. Not necessarily, I mean, yes, I'm conscious of what I eat, but when I eat, I think is an important part of the process as well. So,
well, I really do appreciate that. And the fact that you've been successful in other aspects of your life, you know, I know that you'll be successful in this as well, and you already have been, especially the advocacy part of things. So I'm so honored to have the chance to meet you and speak with you and have you on Health is Wealth. You've dropped a lot of gems for our listeners, and super inspirational. Just very, very proud that we were able to share this time together, and you're able to speak on your life, your journey, your story, and your advocacy. I think the platform that you have as someone who has been successful in their career, now using their microphone, their bully pulpit, and their own life choices, like you just explained, to drive good health forward and to drive us forward as a society, I think that's awesome. So thank you so much again for being here. I appreciate you, Jerome. Thank you very, very much.
No problem, and thank you for what you do and the transition that you've made, into medicine, and now to bring that focal point into education and outreach and let people understand these issues that we all have to deal with. I really appreciate that, and keep up the great work.
Thank you for taking the time out to speak with us today and be on Health is Wealth.